Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. We do appreciate it very much. Mr. Holtz-Eakin, you've had a very distinguished career of being in policy, economic policy, and have been a great help in the past through the years. I think you made a great statement when you talked about shovel-ready projects. That's great. That creates some jobs. But the real benefit is the economic activity that comes after that if they are worthy. President Eisenhower, because of military reasons, built the interstate system. As a result of that, we became the leader in the sense of being able to move goods and services also. That lessened prices to consumers. That's a great thing. Now, with globalization, not only are we worried about, again, being efficiencies, helping our producers now, selling to our own population, but also trying to compete with globalization. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is as we try to, and the logistics, how important that is, being able to compete with a worldwide economy?
We are in constant competition with countries around the world, workers around the world, and we have to make sure that our workers have at their disposal the best technologies and the most efficient operating surroundings. And there are some very particular things that come up again and again, not all of which are solvable in this committee, but the connectivity between different modes is an ongoing problem in the United States. Ports to trains and trucks to airplanes, and those are and there's some high congestion areas that just jump right out on the West Coast, and there are a couple. And solving those has a big impact on the domestic economy, but also a big impact on our competitiveness, because you're spending a lot of money internally just getting stuff in and out, and so that I think that's very important. And there are some things that we know going forward are going to be more important. I think we're not going to see commercial air travel for leisure purposes be what it used to be, but air cargo and the capacity of planes to fly closer together, carry greater volumes, an air traffic system that looks forward and is better. These are all the kinds of things that are core infrastructure for a 21st century when you're competing globally.
Yesterday, I was in a hearing in the VA committee, and the secretary of the VA was there. He was telling us that in the last few weeks, they'd hired thousands of VA employees using the abilities that, under this very difficult circumstance that we're in, normally that would take a year. It's amazing. Can all of you all talk about, and we'll start with you, Mr. McGew, about the importance of a 1 or 2 year project that could be a 1 or 2 year project actually being closer to a decade project? If we could just reduce some of the, and again, doing it in the correct way. Great example of that is the bridge that fell down in Minneapolis. That was done in a year. That project, I don't know how long it would have taken if you did it in the conventional way. How important is that? How would that save us money and allow us to get some of these projects done?
Well, what you have in the bill that you passed last July, when I said common sense reforms, a lot of it is codifying the one federal decision and getting the lead agency. When it comes to transportation, we would look to the DOT. But being able to get reviews down to a 2 year window and moving forward, that's where a lot of your challenges come with moving projects forward. It's the time to get construction started, and as you've seen in projects that have been fast-tracked for accelerated delivery, those roadblocks get out of the way, and you see what happens. What we need as a nation is some of this common sense policy reforms, where the average person, if you told them how long it would take to get a project up off the ground, they find it hard to believe that that's true. We need to shrink that timeline. That's where your efficiencies are going to come from.
It's enormously important on a project basis, obviously, but as a flavor of what is really at stake, my organization keeps track of every regulation issued by the federal government. And over the 8 years of the Obama administration, it issued a major regulation, something that will cost the private sector more than $100 million, and an average rate of 1.1 per day for 8 straight years, a total cost of $890 billion, over $100 billion a year. The Trump's administration's approach to regulatory budgets has essentially stopped that in its tracks. And there's been a modest increase. It was a negative coming into the pandemic. That has an enormous difference in economic performance. We saw that. In this pandemic, the emergency waivers that we have seen across the federal agencies have allowed people to do things flexibly and respond quickly. I think that's been just a huge success. And to the extent you can make the progress you have in your bill or codify things that have been done under emergency waivers, I think that'd be valuable.
Very good. Mr. Mayor, can you do it very quickly or the chairman's going to yell at me?
Okay, I'll be quick, thank you. Great project management cannot be replaced, and obviously you want projects streamlined, and we always want safety at the forefront of all of these things. As we're doing that, we've got to remember that there's equity issues around the environment, so there has to be an environmental justice issue overlaid on all these type of things, so our low-income neighbors don't feel like, okay, here we go again, we're going to get the short end of that stick. The streets are clearly talking to us, that's not the right way. I just want to make a plug for one more thing, value engineering. We took our Ohio River Bridges project from a $4 billion budget down to $2.5 billion, and it is a beautiful piece of infrastructure. So having the different ways to look at projects from gold-plated to functional is very important so we can maximize all this. And then, Senator, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of shovel-ready projects available today throughout America, as well as we work out untangling our bureaucratic messes on the other side. So people can get started to go to work today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.